just say maybe to drugs.
You want some drugs?
Maybe. So what makes drugs good and bad? It's not really about whether they're good or bad. It's about whether they have mental costs and benefits, social costs and benefits, physical costs and benefits, and monetary costs and benefits.
Socially, you might decide to talk to your ex and act just so cool about everything, she decides to get back with you. Or you might start acting like a crazy asshole for no reason, and she puts out a restraining order on you.
Social costs and benefits, right? So the most important thing in the world is other people. We evolved giant brains to be able to deal with other people. It's all about hunter-gatherers being able to organize together, and in order to organize together, you need to be with people. But the thing that brings you together more than anything else in the world is shared experiences. People like to combine experiences together and then live, right? And one of the main things that drugs can bring you is a shared sense of new experience. So if you're doing new experiences with people, that can be a massive social benefit to you because it'll make you closer to your friend group.
I had already drank a 40 of King Cobra by the time me and a few of my buddies decided to eat 5 grams of shrooms each. Shortly after that, I drank another 40 and blacked out. Next thing I remember, I wake up stiff as a piece of beef jerky on my buddy's bed, all alone. Trying to remember what I was doing there, and realized I was trying to hide from Satan, which made no damn sense. So then I started walking around the house till I found his garage, and thought, I should whip my dick out and piss on it. And then I walked through the whole house and pissed in every room that I could. We all got together in the living room once we started coming down from the trip. Turns out I freaked my buddy out, so I convinced him the FBI was outside casing the joint. But not just the FBI. I convinced him Mulder from the X-Files was outside looking for Satan. And when I told him about pissing all over his house, he said it was fine, because he did too. Except when we looked around, we couldn't find any piss anywhere.
However, that new experience too many times in a row, it'll stop being new and it'll start to take over. And one of the main costs of a drug is that it just takes up time and you stop doing other things and end up just doing that one thing, and then you end up being one-sided because you're only doing that one thing. And so if you do too much of a drug, it can be a social cost. And so think of it as a continuum. Here's doing no drugs and here's doing a lot of drugs. You want to be about here, where you're doing a little bit of drugs.
The best part about taking benzos is hearing about what you did the next day. Like stopping your car in the middle of the road, getting out to take a piss, and fighting with the cops when they come up behind you. Shouldn't be watching me piss, man. It's just weird.
Badass story. So my friend had a gallon of acid, just like a gallon jug of water that he put a whole bunch of liquid acid in, and he kept on microdosing himself, and he just walk around town with this gallon of acid. And he gets up to this after party. It's like 11 o'clock at night and everybody's doing shots and they're like, yeah man, shots are great. Just sitting around in a circle, and then he pulls out this gallon jug of acid and he's like, who wants some acid? But the thing is, because everybody was doing shots without drinking any water, everybody's just really thirsty at that point, really drunk, and they're like, oh cool, water mixed in with some acid. Maybe I'll do some acid too. And then they started passing around this gallon jug of acid. And I was like, this is the worst idea I've seen for a while.
Benzos are a lot like psychedelics, because you learn about yourself when you're on them. Like how many times you can fall on your face in a Denny's parking lot, or how much you like stealing. And if you don't like that about yourself, that's okay. You ain't gonna remember tomorrow anyway.
Benzos are really good if you're going to have a panic attack. If you're gonna have a panic attack, you pop a Xanax, you stop having a panic attack. Sounds great. So here's a cool story about benzos. So my friend who liked to trip all the time, mostly on DMT, anytime he would do acid, like 2 hits or something, he just had a little Klonopin that he'd put in his pocket. He wouldn't take it, but it was just there to make him calm, so that he knew he always had an exit route. Monetary costs of drugs. Well, there's some drugs that cost a lot of money, and some drugs that cost no money. The drugs that cost no money are the drugs you get for free. So before you do any specific drug, look to see somebody who's done a lot of that drug, because then you can see into the future. So for acid, I know a bunch of people who've done a lot of acid, and they tend to be really happy and impulsive and dropped out of society and play music all day. So I see into the future. Is that something that I'd want? Maybe. Maybe it's not, because I've also seen people who've done way too much and they end up in the mental institution. So, balance it out. Only do a little bit. Maybe. So my friend lives in northern Florida, right? And his dad comes up to him and is like, "Hey son, you want to go do some meth? I know a guy who does a bunch of meth." And he's like, "Do I? I love meth. Let's go over to his house and do a bunch of meth." So they go over to this guy's house and everybody's there sitting around in a circle. This guy pulls out this pile of meth and just smokes it, just one after the other, just hits bowl after bowl after bowl, just doing meth over and over, just completely high and out of meth. And then he looks around and he's like, "Who stole my meth? Who smoked all my meth?" And he pulls out a gun and everybody's just like, "Dude, you did. You smoked that meth yourself." And he's like, "Who smoked my meth? Who smoked my meth?" And then everybody was like that and just walked out. And my friend goes, "I'm never smoking meth again." So here's the thing about drugs. It's not just the drug, it's also the hangover. Both are part of the drug. Also, whenever you take a drug, it makes you feel the exact opposite when it wears off. So if you take cocaine, you feel great about yourself and you have an inflated ego. When it wears off, you have a deflated ego and you feel terrible about yourself. If you take a bunch of acid and you feel super high and you're like thinking really fast and everything is great, the next day you'll not be able to concentrate on anything and you'll be thinking really slow. Both are the drug, both days together. So plan it out, right?
Or maybe your friends and family don't want to talk to you anymore, so keep trying to prank call them from the drunk tank.
So what makes a good drug or a bad drug? Good drugs create community, bad drugs destroy community. If you want to see more stories on drugs, right here.